Welcome back to Project Geekology. My name is Dakota. I am joined, as always, with
Wade Wilson, Anthony,
for our 86th episode. You know, I'd really tried hard to figure out some connection between our topic of discussion today, which is Deadpool, and the 86th episode, specifically 86, but like Deadpool was created in 1990. And you know the Rotten Tomato score is 95, so it's just like doesn't match up, guys. I personally take accountability for this one for not finding any particular connection between the episode number and the topic at hand. But we have a great show for you tonight. We're gonna try not to talk about ourselves as much as possible because we have a lot to talk about with the movie at hand, which is Deadpool, and we're really excited about it. What do you think about? What do you think about this, Anthony?
Think about Deadpool, or think about us not talking about ourselves?
Whatever you want to think about. What do you think about that?
Oh man, I love talking about myself. No man, I'm actually really excited about talking about this film. I really like this movie. It's probably like every Deadpool fan's dream that this movie came out. Now, I'm a Deadpool fan. I'm not a diehard Deadpool. I mean, I guess it does work for him. But yeah, Deadpool fan. But I really do think that his character is really cool. I like the fourth wall stuff, but we'll talk more about that when we actually cover the movie. But how about you?
Yeah, we're going to take a couple minutes to talk about ourselves. But before we get into any of that, it's been a couple months, probably over a year at this point, where we kind of introduced ourselves to the podcast. So we want to take a little bit of time to just reintroduce ourselves to you lovely listeners. My name is Dakota. I'm joined as always with Anthony, and we've been friends since probably second or third grade of elementary school, and we've kept in touch all this time, and we've pretty much orbited around the same interests our entire lives, and we decided, why not discuss it on a podcast? And here we are, almost, 20 years, 30 years later? Maybe not 30 years, but 25 maybe?
Yeah, it's definitely over 20 years. Maybe like we're getting close to a quarter of a century of friendship, but...
That's terrifying. That's terrifying to think about.
It is. The crazy thing is that, you know, we're in the summertime, and that's actually where our friendship initially started, at a summer camp, a day camp. Remember we used to go to a day camp?
Dude.
So, yeah, man, good times. You know, I remember every other Friday we would either go to the movies or to the skating rink.
It was always one of those two things. It was always like, you know, you want to watch that Toy Soldiers movie again, or do you want to like fall on your butt while we were on a skating rink?
And I did both. Well, we got to see Pokemon the first movie.
That was a good time. That was a really good time. You know, but we're not talking about that. That would be a really fantastic topic of discussion for a future episode. But after we discuss all of the X-Men movies, because we're kind of on a roll as we are currently going, because I think we're 7 or 8 movies in to our discussion of X-Men movies. We started with X-Men in 2000. We did X2. We did X-Men: The Last Stand. We did First Class. We did both of the Wolverine movies. I think the 7th movie
we did Days of Future Past, which was our last one,
which was my favorite so far, by the way.
Yes. For those of you that may not be an X-Men fan, just bear with us. We are going to branch out after we go through this. We're kind of like in a little bit of a series right now. So don't worry.
Leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine, basically.
Yes. We have talked about, and we've said this for a few podcasts, that we are looking into making an episode on Death Note. We do want to incorporate more anime and other stuff outside of movies. So,
specifically, Pokemon the first movie.
Specifically, I would actually like to cover that Indigo season, like that first season, the one that we grew up on.
That would be interesting. That would actually be really cool.
So yeah, but yeah. So quickly, what have you been up to, Dakota?
Okay, let's dive into this. So, if you've been listening over the past couple weeks, couple months at this point, I've been working on a Star Wars timeline. By the time this video goes out, I should be finished with my Star Wars visual timeline. I'm calling it the Star Wars time saber because it's kind of like a time. It's like a lightsaber that kind of like curves around into a big timeline. And if you follow me on Instagram, or I'm sorry, if you follow me on Twitter, you will see a mock-up of the latest version of that time saber, and by the time this episode comes out, you should have the entire thing. It should be available on my Patreon at this point because I'm already in 34 ABY. I only have one more year at this point, and I'm so excited because it is the biggest timeline I've ever worked on. It's the biggest Photoshop project I've ever worked on. Someone asked me today how many layers I have in Photoshop for this project, and it's a little bit, it's probably about 1145, so 1145 layers of this project that I've been working weeks on, and it looks pretty if I'm being honest, it looks pretty damn cool. So I'm really excited to share it. What have you been up to, Anthony?
Nothing as crazy as that.
No, I mean, I am a crazy person. Anyone listening to this show for an extended period of time, or any of followers of my channel, know that I go the extra mile, and I am actually an insane person that should be admitted into any asylum. Anyway, what
just obsessed with timelines.
I'm a freak, bro.
Really just like little tweaks here and there on the.
I just spilled whiskey on my pants, by the way. Damn it. Sorry,
but yeah,
go ahead.
No, you're good. Just a little bit of nothing too major, a little bit of tweaks here and there on the podcast website. Was the production on that has slowed down a little bit. I mean, I've gotten a little busy with some stuff, but it is something that I am still actively working on right now. Just making sure that honestly, at this point, I could probably release it soon, but there's certain things that I want to get down-pack before I actually put it out, because it'll help the website in the long term. Other than that, man, yeah, I've started my watch through of Death Note again, kind of like in preparation of that future episode, just to give me time to we still have plenty more of
we have
X-Men
so much
movies,
of X-Men that we got to go to. By the way, guys, after this week, there's only, I think, 1 or 2 X-Men movies that I've actually seen in this series. So I've seen Deadpool 2. I have not seen X-Men Apocalypse. I have not seen New Mutants. I have not seen Dark Phoenix. This is all new to me post this point. So I am so excited because I'm actually going to be visiting new movies for this first time. I'm a big X-Men fan if you've listened to podcasts previous to this, but for whatever reason, I guess I was just very tired of the X-Men saga, and I'm so excited to jump into Apocalypse and beyond at this point. But we're also going to touch on Deadpool 2 eventually, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
I think you kind of hit the same point that we did with Marvel now, I mean,
what do you mean?
we've kind of hit that superhero fatigue, the MCU, the quality of the stuff that they started coming out with wasn't so good, and we haven't had enough time to really miss superhero media, if that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I can totally see that happening. Yes, while I am kind of apprehensive to the idea of superhero fatigue, I do agree that it exists to an extent, especially when it comes to the X-Men franchise, which at this point had pretty much already been bought by Disney, or it was soon to be bought by Disney. I think X-Men Apocalypse was the last movie to be released before Disney bought the franchise. Of not just X-Men but 20th Century Fox. I think at this point I was so engrossed in what they were doing with the MCU, all interest for the X-Men series was kind of tangential, and that was a mistake on my part, and I'm ready to correct that on this podcast. So I'm excited to jump into that very shortly.
You know, within next week, literally next week, I'm gonna be watching one of my first X-Men movies in a very long time, and I'm so excited about that. So
with fresh new eyes. No, yeah, I've gone through and I've seen those movies, and you know, I mean,
oh, we got a badass over here. Okay,
yeah, man, you know, you already know, man. Bro, I keep it current, man. Why would I make a podcast and not be current on this stuff? No,
yeah, I know.
There's a lot of stuff I'm not current on, you know. But yeah,
he hasn't seen X-Men '97 yet. Oh my god.
Not all of it, but some of it, yes. But yeah, no, honestly, nothing major outside of, well, at least not that I can remember. I know I'm probably gonna remember something that I did after we record, maybe tonight or tomorrow. I mean, that's how it always works with me.
We always do that. Yeah,
I always do that. Yeah.
All right. So what I will say is, I have been probably once a night. I've been trying to read a little bit of One Piece. I'm way behind on the anime. I've probably only gotten to maybe episode 20 of the anime, but I'm into like episode or like the chapter 161 or 162 at this point, where they're finally into the Alabasta arc. I've just passed the Drum Island arc where they bring Chopper onto the crew. I love Chopper as a character. I don't think I mentioned that on the podcast. I think I keep mentioning it off the podcast with you. And I'm really excited to see what the, you know, what the team does. You know, I'm excited because I know of the adventures that they go on, but I don't know of the individual things in the adventures. Like, I just found out that Luffy has an older brother named Ace.
Oh, Fire Fist.
Like, that's... Yeah, dude, that's awesome. And it was such an interesting, like, a fun introduction to the character that I'm excited to see that character again. Like, he was looking for Luffy in, like, some, like, inn that he was, you know, frequenting. And then Luffy was just, like, starving, and he broke through the walls to, like, look for food. It was amazing. What a fantastic entrance.
Dude, yeah. Fire Fist is funny. Ace is funny, man. Especially like when he falls asleep in his food, like everybody thinks he's dead. Yeah, dude. One Piece is really fun. I really enjoy that series. I always watch like a huge chunk of the episodes before I take a break and watch like either something else, or I'll watch another anime or a TV show, or just like hunker down on some gaming, which is almost always the thing that I do. But
Persona.
Yeah, look, hey, you brought it up this time. You're finally joining the crew.
Anthony, before we discuss Deadpool, is there anything big you want to talk about, or are we ready to jump into this?
I need 15 more minutes.
15 more minutes? No.
No.
We've decided as a podcast to jump into the action of, like, you know, the meat of the episode sooner rather than later, which I think will probably help us out in the long run. But
yes. Yeah. We have a lot that we want to talk about, and I know that sometimes we miss out on certain things. I did, for those of you that listened to last week's episode, we had gone through the entire podcast without mentioning the character Quicksilver, but I was like,
how did we do that? How did we do that?
I remedied that.
I know you did. I know. I'm proud of you for that. But like,
I was like, dude, we had to.
How did we get, you know, so far into a discussion of Days of Future Past without talking about Quicksilver, which was like the best scene in that movie?
Yes,
bar none. You know, it wasn't like hugely important to the movie, but it was like the best scene in the movie. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I had to.
But now is not the time to linger on Quicksilver. Now is the time to linger on our friend Wade Wilson.
You're right. Look, we are going to put forth maximum effort in this episode.
I appreciate that. A little bit of Deadpool lore into the podcast. Guys, we're so excited to talk about this. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, is this the first rated R movie we've ever discussed on the podcast?
Oh my goodness, that is a good question.
We're not ones for making rated R content our normal topic of discussion, you know? Like,
Right. Even though like I'm not opposed to it like at
right.
all. I mean,
Yeah.
this won't be the first one. We also have Logan coming up, and we also have the second Deadpool movie, and
As well as Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I think Death Note is it?
It's TVMA.
Yes. So
I guess
it's the TV equivalent of rated R. So
okay, sure.
So yeah, we got some on the horizon. But yeah, no, this is it. If this is, I mean, I can't think of it, but if this is our first foray into like something rated R, I'm actually glad that it is this movie, because this movie is so fun. It's absolutely like ridiculous, hilarious, but also like awesome.
It's also the first, or it's at the time of, you know, when it was released in theaters, it was the highest grossing rated R movie at the time, prior to Deadpool 2 and Joker and all that. But like, this kind of opened the doors to those movies making so much money, because rated R movies, they had their audience, but they weren't four quadrant like those movies were. You know, Deadpool was kind of like the first of that kind of movie to really break the mold of, you know, just making that much money. Hold on, I'm going to look up how much money it actually made.
I'm going to assume that it's a lot.
Yeah, so I'm looking it up now. It's almost $800 million worldwide, which was, at the time, in 2016, you know, long before COVID and all that, as like movie theater prices continued to rise in the wake of Marvel. That was huge. I think at this point in movie theaters, there had been only 25 movies to crack $1 billion. I think, if I remember correctly, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, was the 25th movie ever to crack $1 million or $1 billion. Dude, guys, I've been drinking for a couple hours. I'm a little stumbly. I apologize. I'm trying to remain coherent.
Dang it, Dakota.
Anthony knows I'm trying I'm giving my maximum effort on this podcast. We will survive. All right, go ahead, Anthony.
So what I found insane, and to me it doesn't feel like this, but this movie is actually only an hour and 48 minutes long.
Dude, I was thinking the same thing. It's rather short for a... So, okay. Days of Future Past was like, especially the road cut, was like 2.5 hours.
Yes.
I was fully prepared to watch a 2.5 hour movie, because at this point in Hollywood, we've gotten past the point of the 2 hour mark being like the standard for superhero consumption, I guess.
Right. For the longest time, it was about an hour and a half to hour and 40.
And then after a certain point, like after 2012, after 2014, like between 2012 and 2014, it jumped up to an over 2 hour film to about like 2 hours 20 minutes. That was the standard for superhero movies. And if you actually like look up the critical reception of movies in the superhero genre, and I've done the research on this, I know what I'm talking about. If you look up the Rotten Tomatoes score, the IMDb tomato score, the audience tomato score, the Metacritic tomato score, or not tomato score, but you know, Metacritic score or whatever. If you look up all of these scores and aggregate it based on the length of the movie, there is a correlation between how long a movie is and what the score, like, critically is. And it's interesting because movies that average 2.5 hours generally perform extremely critically well, but movies that perform under 2 hours underperform. And I have my own personal theories as to why that is, but I've always kind of I've attributed it to, like, you're dealing with concepts that don't work within the real world. And for whatever reason, when you explore those concepts for X number of minutes, X number of hours, sometimes it works better when you explore it for a little bit longer. And it makes a little bit more sense when drawn out and you give it time to breathe. So movies like Infinity War, Endgame, Days of Future Past, some of the longer Snyder Cut movie, or like the Snyder movies, those genre of movies that are in the superhero realm that are a little bit longer tend to perform better critically. I don't know why that is. My theory is that it just makes more sense when you actually, get to spend a little bit extra time in that world. But yeah, that's what I've come up with.
So what I'm thinking is it all depends on how well you utilize the time that you're given, or the given time. That, you can have a 2.5 hour movie, but if you're not using that 2.5 hours to like really put something well on the screen, you're not going to do well. And I feel like the same could be said for something shorter. Now, if you're going to give me a short movie, you're going to have to wow me. It's almost like a flash in the pan at that point. And
Can you think of a long movie that you feel should have been shorter, or a short movie that should have been longer? If not, it's not a big deal. I mean, I just like off the top of your head, like, do you think that there are certain movies that...
How long was Quantumania?
Quantumania, I think, was around 2 hours, maybe a little bit shorter. I'm gonna be... Let's look this up.
Because I felt like that movie was too long.
Really? Okay. Let's look it up really quick.
Or maybe because like I wasn't grabbed.
Right. So it's Quantumania is 2 hours and 5 minutes. So as far as Marvel movies go, in phase 3 and 4, it's a very short film.
Maybe, I guess I just wasn't like impressed what was put on the screen. So like you get bored, and so it feels like it's a long time. Honestly, to tell you the truth, with Deadpool, I mean, because we're just going crazy on other stuff outside of Deadpool, but with Deadpool being,
it's all considered, bro. Don't worry.
With Deadpool only being an hour and 48 minutes, I feel like it was the perfect length for that film. Like we got what we needed.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's actually talk about Deadpool a little bit, because like you said, it's a perfectly plotted out film. It starts you out with a little bit of action, then it gives you a little bit of backstory, then it brings you back into the action, then it gives you a little bit more backstory so that you fully understand what's at stake, and then the rest of the movie plays out. And I think that that's such a great recipe for a origin story in a way, because this is the origin of that character, even though we have seen Wade Wilson in these movies prior to this point.
Yes. Is this technically Deadpool 1.5? Or was that
I think it's Deadpool 2.0. Let's be frank. They do briefly, show a like a 3.25 inch action figure of Deadpool from Wolverine Origins or X-Men Origins Wolverine. They show that figure briefly as like the scene changes into kind of like a flashback event, but which is great, by the way. I love that kind of stuff. And they also showed another of Ryan Reynolds' failed franchises, Green Lantern. He, when he's being brought into the medical center, he's just like, please no CGI suits and don't make it green or something like that.
Oh, yes, yes.
And that's specifically, targeting that, like the Green Lantern suit that he had in, I think it was, if I remember correctly, a 2012 movie. I might be totally off on that. 2011, 2012. His suit was entirely CGI. It didn't look bad, but it didn't look great either. And the movie, we haven't talked about it on the show, I don't believe. I thought it was a decent movie, but they tried to stuff too much Green Lantern, like Hal Jordan lore, into a 2-hour movie, and it was too much, And I think that's what they were referencing with that line in this movie.
Alrighty, so Deadpool, man. You know, who is
Sorry, I
Deadpool?
keep going on tangents.
No. I'm saying Deadpool. You know, who
Yeah.
is Deadpool? He's this edgy character. You know, he was made in the '90s, and the '90s was definitely that period where they were trying to make things, or they were trying to make things edgier and kind of like out, you know, like wow and out there. And Deadpool is one of those. Is probably the product of that time. You know.
Oh, 100%. So he was created in the year 1990 by Rob Liefeld. And anyone who's like been in the comic industry knows that this is a character that's evolved over time as different creators have picked him up. But Rob Liefeld was the initiator of the character, and he gets a little shout out in the opening. I want to say it's opening credits, but like, you know, like the car scene where like everything's like kind of in slow motion as the car kind of tumbles through the air.
Yes.
I think if I remember correctly, it's like on like a Starbucks cup or some sort of cup that says like R Liefeld on it, or Robert L on the on like the side of it, and that's, or Rob L, something like that. There's definitely a mention of that in like the beginning of this. And actually there's a scene in the trailer of Deadpool and Wolverine, the third Deadpool movie that's coming out as of June 21st, which is when I'm recording this. There's like another month ahead of us before that movie comes out. There's a scene in that trailer where they're walking towards the camera, those two characters, and in the background there's a shop that's called like Liefeld Feet or something like that, Liefeld's Feet. And the artist, which is also like an artist slash writer, is notorious for being incapable of drawing feet. Like they're always either too big or too small for like the giant size proportions of muscles that he like showcases on the panel. Like it's just like proportionally ridiculous. So if you look in the background of the Deadpool trailer, you're going to find a shop called like Liefeld's Feet or something like that. And I love that. I love that so much.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, man. So this Deadpool movie, yeah, like we get the creation of Deadpool and the, you know, the state that we get him in the rest of the films. In the beginning of this, he doesn't have his like healing factor yet.
Right.
And he's just like a really highly skilled fighter at this point, or he's really just like kind of like a hitman. And then I think kind of over time he like develops a lot of this other stuff that he can do.
What's interesting is that like you said, he doesn't have his abilities at this point. He's not a character who has developed into their X gene. The X gene being the mutation that a number of characters in the Marvel Universe have attained at this point because of either, you know, living throughout their lives or being forced to mutate. In this movie, we see that Wade Wilson is forced to mutate after he's, you know, given the diagnosis that he has cancer in like 4 different parts, like stage 4 cancer in like multiple parts of his bodies.
Right, yeah, he has terminal cancer.
And he's kind of trying to figure out how to prolong his life because he's literally just found the love of his life. Yeah. And he wants to prolong that. And, you know, more power to him. Anyone in that position, I hope they do get the opportunity to prolong their lives because, you know, they found love, they found something awesome. So he's found the love of his life. He's introduced to someone who gives him a card that says basically something along the lines of, you know, reach out to me if you want to do something about your current state of life, basically, and kind of giving him some hope for the future in terms of it's the last chance before he's dead.
Right.
You know, he initially scoffs at the idea, but he eventually takes it.
He does, and like honestly, the situation is so horrible, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, even before he takes it, like, I think he says he has cancer in his brain, in his chest, in his stomach, like a whole bunch of cancer that's like stage 4, and he's got X number of weeks or months to live.
Yeah.
And he's ready to like totally give up on life so that he doesn't put his new girlfriend in any pain, basically. He wants to divorce her of that and just like leave her life, because he believes that the ugliest months or the ugliest days of his life are incoming with cancer. You know, like he doesn't want to put her through that. He wants her to remember her as he is now.
Yes.
So instead of doing any of that, he goes and calls this number with this crazy freak guy named Agent Smith. Like, what's really funny is that like he jokes about this character being named Agent Smith because he's kind of like an agent in the Matrix. But like if you follow if you have subtitles on throughout the movie, whenever that guy talks, it's it's subtitled as Agent Smith says this line. So the character's name is canonically Agent Smith.
But yeah, what he gets put through to activate that X gene is like honestly like horrible, man. Especially that chamber he gets put into.
Anyone, yeah. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
That oxygen chamber just seems absolutely just ridiculous. It's terrible. Yeah, man. So,
yeah, it's not even just waterboarding. It's like a next level waterboarding, because it's like, so the amount of torture he's put under to awaken that X gene is insane. So not only is he tortured like pain wise, mentally wise, whatever, he's put in an oxygen chamber that like specifically like almost brings his oxygen level down to suffocation. And when he gets to suffocation, it brings it up just slightly so that his heart doesn't give out. And then it keeps it at that level where it's like not suffocation, but his heart's not giving out. And it's at that level, at that stage, where like it's his mutant gene just taking over his body, basically.
Right. And it's so, you know, his gene is... It's so crazy for him because it's pretty much like Wolverine, you know. He has this healing factor, and he looks so crazy and scarred. It's because of his healing factor that he has is that like his cells are dying just as fast as he's healing, or he's healing a bit faster, a little bit faster than his cells are dying.
Right.
And so it keeps him looking scarred.
Yeah. So I mean, hypothetically, if he keeps this up, hopefully his body heals the cells faster than the cancer kills them. But the entire point of him looking super scarred, like an avocado on a topographical map of Ohio, or Utah, whatever. I'm trying to keep this PG-13. Like, I think eventually, like, if this superpower were to continue, he would get it out of his system and he would eventually look normal. But because his cancer cells are stage 4 and they're continuing at a rate that is, you know, at the current rate that he's going, he's continuing. Basically, like, the cancer on the inside is mutating to the cancer on the outside, basically. Like, he looks like what he looks like on the inside, basically.
Yes. And it's just so fascinating, and it kind of it's like the strength of like cancer, you know. I mean, it's terrible being the way that it is, because I mean he literally can heal from like his like limbs being cut off, you know. Like,
yeah, he can get shot, he can get limbs cut off. He can get his literal head cut off if he wanted to, and he could grow, you know, that could grow back because he's Deadpool, and that's his ability. But the fact that the cancer is growing at a rate that is so fast is very specific to his character, in that, like, he is always at the mercy of that level of regeneration.
Yes.
I guess.
You know, and you get some really funny moments with it because...
Oh my gosh. We haven't even talked about any funny moments in this. This is a comedy. You know, this is first and foremost like a rated R comedy. You know, like we can't... There's like a few lines maybe in the entire thing that we can talk about on a PG on the PG show, the PG like podcast that we're presenting right now. So we can't talk about most of the stuff on, on this movie, but we're gonna try.
Yeah, I love. I just love some of the fourth wall stuff that he says. Like there's like that moment where he has like he's like stabbing somebody. He's like holding them in the air, and he's like, you know, you may be saying like, oh my gosh, like my boyfriend said this was a superhero movie, but he just turned that man into a kebab. You know, he said effing kebab, but like he's like, you know, I may be super, but I'm no hero. You know, it's just it's so. Ryan Reynolds really was the perfect casting for this character,
and that's amazing. That's amazing for a number of reasons. He was great in this movie, yes, but that also means he was great in X-Men Wolverine or X-Men Origins Wolverine. We just didn't know it. We just didn't know it yet. You know, like there was a number of layers that needed to be broached with X-Men Origins Wolverine, because that's where Ryan Reynolds started playing the Wade Wilson character, who was a loudmouth, who blah blah blah, was an annoyance for a number of characters. He's still that in this movie. But I'm so happy. You know, even though we got probably the worst movie in the entire series with X-Men Origins Wolverine, if we did not get that movie, would we have A, a Deadpool movie to begin with, and B, the best actor possible to play that character?
Right, yeah. I mean, you could see, like, looking back at X-Men Origins Wolverine, you could see, like, you can see that Deadpool, a little bit of that Deadpool in this Deadpool, but this is the definitive version of that. Yeah, man, it's just, Deadpool is literally like the R-rated Spider-Man. Because you know how Spider-Man will be like with his little banter and like, you know, like, hey man, what's going on? Can you is this the ferry to Staten Island? You know, that kind of stuff.
What's great about Spider-Man is that he will break the fourth wall without actually breaking the fourth wall. You know, he will be the voice of the reader without having to address the reader specifically. Deadpool isn't that character. He will address the reader because it's his, you know, job to break the fourth wall, just like She-Hulk. That's her job. You know, like, those are those characters' jobs. But I love the balance that they chose for this movie, you know? Like, it's such good balance between, like, talking to the person in the scene versus, you know, occasionally turning to the camera and being like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever had to do, you know? Like, I love that stuff. And it even extends to the mid-credits scene, where it's almost like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off cut scene.
Yeah, that's literally what it was.
Yeah, he's got the robe and everything. He's just like, you're still here?
Dude, and I remember seeing that in the movies, because I mean, at that point we had gotten used to the MCU post, you know, those like post-credit scenes. And so the fact that like they put that in there was absolutely genius. I love that it was perfect. It was like, you know, it was kind of making fun of that in a way, you know?
Yeah, totally. Because you had the MCU, which every movie they had at least one at that point, post-credit scene. Sometimes a mid-credit scene. This movie made fun of it because, and they did it in such a beautiful way, because Ferris Bueller's Day Off also had a post-credit scene, which is exactly like the Deadpool one, where it's just like, you're still here.
Yes. You know? Yeah, it was exactly. Yeah, that was genius that they did that.
And what's amazing about that is, in the recent book that came out called The Reign of Marvel Studios, I think that's what the book is called, The Reign of Marvel Studios, there's an interview with Kevin Feige in it that he explains why he wants post-credit scenes and mid-credit scenes in it, and it all stems back from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he watched that in the 80s and he's just like, that was amazing, you know, why don't more movies do that? And that's the initial like boom that created the post-credit phenomenon that is the Marvel Studios or Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, dude, like mid and post credit scenes are pretty much synonymous with MCU films, and yeah, I love that this movie makes fun of that. And dude, the way that this movie captures you, it grabs you even like from the beginning when he's not in Deadpool mode, and I like that that they have an actual Deadpool that they, and that like that
it's clever,
that like kind of hitman bar that he goes to, that like the fact that they like
TJ
put
Miller
bets
bar
on who's gonna die, and
yes.
I like that his buddy actually like puts money on him.
He's got to put money on someone, right?
He's like, oh my gosh, like USOB. But yeah, it's because we're there to see Deadpool, and the fact that they were able to grab you, and we had so much of a movie before we actually got to where he became Deadpool, the man in the red spandex. I love that, like, initially when he moves into that place with that old blind woman, and he's like starting to do Deadpool, or like be who he is. He's looking for Francis, the guy that pretty much he's looking for Francis
created
because Francis said, "Hey, look, I'm the only guy that can fix the way that you look," because of that scarring. And so he's looking for him, and so he's on this pretty much on this like crusade looking for him. And he like starts off with like white clothing, but he like gets shot and he's like bleeding and it's all like red. And like the lady was like, she's like, why don't you
wear red?
Yeah, wear red, dummy. But she calls him something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it's that kind of
such a funny movie.
In a way. That kind of reminded me of Spider-Man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, the initial suit that he was trying to. It was almost like I felt like he was making fun of that too.
Oh, the suit creation scene in the Tobey Maguire movie.
Yes, and how he had different iterations, and like the way like Deadpool's like initial like costumes were absolutely like kind of ridiculous, and it was so funny. I loved it.
And then like after the ridiculous, super cheap costume, it was like the most advanced possible costume ever.
Right? It's like, dude, where do these people learn tailoring?
What's the learning curve? Where is the learning curve? In a pre-Google world,
dude. I see. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean,
specifically talking about Spider-Man on that one, but
absolutely. Before we, we got to the University of Google and YouTube days. that was like pre-YouTube also. So, but yeah, it's there's so much to love about this. I mean, let's kind of like, we covered a little bit about what this movie, like, the kind of the start, like this is the origin of Deadpool, and so yeah, like he starts off as, I mean, what he was, assassin, a hitman.
They kind of explain that he was a assassin like in wartime, and they say that he has like something like 40 confirmed kills or whatever, but like in the present he's no more than just kind of like a bully for hire, if anything. Like, he's not trying to kill anyone in person nowadays in the States. He's just trying to scare people into giving them money,
or scaring people for other people so he gets money from those people.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Where he scares that stalker. Dude, I love that he like orders a pizza to a guy's apartment, and like the guy's like, and like you're thinking like, oh, he's after this guy. No, he's after the pizza guy. And I love that he makes fun of, dude. He makes fun of the guy's pants. He's like, dude, like ease up on the bedazzling.
Specifically, yeah, he's talking about the guy whose house he's invading.
Dude, he invaded a guy's house. I was like, there's no reason for him to be in that man's apartment other than to stage a pizza delivery so that he can scare this guy who was stalking, and then.
But I think that's why it's so funny. You know, like you think that he's going after this guy who owns the apartment, but it happens to be the pizza guy.
And then at like the end of all of that, he's like, after like making this guy like piss his pants, he goes back to the place and he's like, he's a good kid, just a little light stalking.
Yeah, like we've all been there. Yeah, for sure.
But I know, right? He says it so candidly. Yeah, but yeah, so we kind of fast forward a little bit. You know, we've got Wade Wilson. He meets this guy Francis, and his colleague, who's played by Gina Carano. I don't remember her name. Did she have a name?
I did. She does have a name, not in the movie, but in. So hold on. All right, Deadpool cast. Gina Carano's name in Deadpool. She is called Angel Dust. She does get called Angel a couple times.
Yes.
By Ajax or Francis. She does get called Angel, but not Angel Dust. I don't remember.
I like how Wade just kind of taunts him with that name. Like he found out that his name was Francis.
And that's the entire incentive of his, vigilantism is to like just torment this guy named Francis because he potentially has the ability to cure him of his cancer for good.
Yes. And to fix like the scarring. Like he was talking about, he was kind of like, tricking him into like keeping him alive because of that.
And I like that they chose Ajax because, anyone who's lived a life, basically, or anyone who's been around the block a little bit, knows that Ajax is a type of cleaning supply. Like, why would a character name themselves Ajax? And he makes that joke a couple times throughout the movie, like, you got that from, like, the cleaning supplies, right? Your actual name is Francis. And he hates Francis for whatever reason. Yes. To the point where, like, Deadpool decides to kill, like, 10 of his employees to, like, spell out the name Francis in the final battle, basically.
Yes. And, like when he's looking for him, he's like, where's Francis? So, in this movie, we get a couple of X-Men. One that's well-known and one that is not so well-known.
F tier at best. Hold on. I'm going to look this up.
Colossus is, like, pretty well-known. Like, I remember seeing Colossus a lot in maybe the 90s, early 2000s. But Negasonic Teenage Warhead, not so much. Didn't even know there was a character named that. Not since I looked up that character after that film. I was like, oh my gosh, that's an actual character's name.
Give me one moment. I'm looking up this character, Negasonic Teenage Warhead. If I remember correctly, she only had one appearance in the comics ever.
I mean, if that's the case, then that's probably why none of us know her or knew him.
I apologize. I spent the past like a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, looking up the character of Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
They won't know that.
But I'm telling them right now. I'm looking up this character, specifically Eloise Phimister in Earth 616, specifically the main comic lore timeline, and I'm not seeing an appearance list, which is pretty normal for most characters in Marvel, which leads me to the assumption that this character isn't actually even a 616 character. 616 being the main comic universe of Marvel, and it's just a character that's appeared in random universes. I could be wrong. If I am, please be sure to let me know on Twitter. You can find my stuff in the show notes down below. But the character of Negasonic Teenage Warhead is so obscure that basically it hasn't even appeared in the comics before. And if I remember correctly, it was a character that they didn't even care like what kind of powers she had. It was the name specifically that drew them to the character in the movie. And she has such a cool name. Like, it's literally Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Like, what does that mean? Nobody knows, really.
That sounds so 90s.
It's a perfectly 90s name. And if I remember correctly, the character only ever appeared once or twice before this movie appeared, like, actually came out, and that's how they got that character. Either way, I love the Sinead O'Connor like jokes that they kept like throwing her way. Just fantastic character. I loved the way that we understood her powers after a certain point. Like she was able to create literal like small bursts of like nuclear energy.
Yes.
That were like small explosives, which was pretty cool. They used that to good effect.
I also like that we got a better Colossus.
This is probably the best Colossus that we've seen so far, and I love all the references to X-Men and Colossus that we got in this movie from the prior movies. So like when Colossus invites him and is like dragging him in like chains, Deadpool goes like, "What, Professor X, Stewart or McAvoy?" And I was dying laughing, dude. I was dying laughing. That's perfect Deadpool.
I love the jokes about like the amount of X-Men that are in I don't remember if it was in this one or the next one, but I feel like they did it in both. About making jokes that there's like nobody in the house.
Well, yeah, because like it was only Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead that showed up on the bridge when he was attacking those people. And then when he goes to the house, it's only those two X-Men. And he goes, "It seems like Fox can't afford any more X-Men."
Dude, I really love the dynamic between... And it's it's like two separate dynamics. I love the dynamic between Deadpool and Negasonic Teenage Warhead, and then Deadpool and Colossus. And it's so funny because Colossus really wants Wade to like not kill and become this X-Men, and
he's a Boy Scout character.
Yes, he is very much so, like a Cyclops or a Captain America type character,
right? And
so like he just gets so pissed when Deadpool like kills. And I love like when Deadpool like he takes Deadpool, and Deadpool's like trying to like get away from him, and so he's like kicking him, and like he's just like breaking his like limbs. Oh my gosh, dude.
The best part is, like when he's got Deadpool in chains and he's bringing him, and Negasonic Warhead, Teenage Warhead is beside him, and he starts like cutting off his wrist so that he can like escape Colossus, and it's just like a slow cut off period. And Negasonic Teenage Warhead is disgusted. She's like, "Oh, disgusting." And later on in the movie, we have Wade Wilson growing back his hands, and he's rooming with a blind woman. And like there's this scene, the funniest scene in the movie for me is like when he like kind of like caresses the blind woman's face, and she goes, I can't even say it without laughing. She goes, "Is it just me, or are your hands really small?"
Because it was the hand that was growing back.
It was the hand that was growing back. I was dying laughing, dude.
Oh my gosh, dude. There's so many. I think like, was it the hand that he cuts off? Doesn't he like leave a middle finger?
I don't even remember. So before we discuss before we close out of this discussion, we have to like kind of comment on like he didn't want his girlfriend to see him the way that he is. So, and he's so paranoid about that, even after 2 years of being under like this visage, of just like this cancerous being, that like in the final battle, he has a cutout of Hugh Jackman's face underneath his own Deadpool mask, just in case he gets unmasked. I love that. It's so good.
Dude, I love what starts in this movie are the Wolverine and like the Hugh Jackman jokes. And
it's so perfect.
It's so perfect.
Because if we didn't get this in the next movie, would we get a Deadpool and Wolverine?
I don't think so. It would have had to have been a Hugh Jackman Wolverine for that movie to work out. It could not have been anybody else casted as Wolverine. I mean, I don't know if there's like a potential baton passing in this, but
I don't know, man. I mean, like, nobody expected Hugh Jackman to take the role on again, after Logan.
But I have a feeling that this movie is gonna do a lot more, and I know that's probably me just like saying like a duh thing, but I feel like this movie is just gonna do a lot more than just be like the next Deadpool movie that's funny. We know that it's the first like crossover from the Fox universe to the MCU universe,
which is huge.
Which is huge. But I feel like something else is going to be ushered forth out from within this movie. Like, this is going to be like, I feel like this is what we're going to like really get a glimpse of the MCU X-Men.
Ooh, I would love that. If I were to say anything, I would say that as far as Wolverine goes, I would prefer to not have Hugh Jackman as the main Wolverine going forward. I would want them to recast. I would want them to recast everyone. Just because it's been 20 years. It's been 20 years since these characters were initially cast. 25 almost. By the time there's an X-Men movie, it'll be closer to 30 years that these X-Men characters were cast than not. But I would want new characters to take on the roles. And I kind of want this, like you said, to be a baton passing moment. This is Wolverine passing the baton on to the next generation.
Right. I feel like this movie, the last time we got Hugh Jackman, it was supposed to be a closure moment, but maybe this is going to be a true closure moment for Hugh Jackman and Wolverine. And I guess in a way we did need it because of like the Deadpool movies. Especially with the second one, but yeah, man, this movie was 2 thumbs up, man.
I'm lifting up my big thumb on my toe on my right foot, so 3 thumbs up for me.
Your toe thumb.
My left toe thumb is not having it. It's like purposely pointed down. It's like cramping up my entire foot. It's really not a good feeling. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to us here for our 86th episode of Project Geekology. As always, my name is Dakota, and I'm joined as always with Anthony. And you can check out any and all of our socials on our show notes down below. Wherever you're listening to this, please be sure to give us a 5-star rating on your preferred podcast application so that more people just like you, even yourself included, can get more of this pushed towards you so that you can listen to more of us ramble on about your favorite comic book movies or whatever it is.
Right, yeah, we have a Crunchyroll episode on the horizon too, so Crunchyroll.
Yeah, we got Crunchyroll, we got Death Note, we got I ran out of stuff to say because we haven't actually planned that far ahead, but I'm going to make stuff up. We got a Star Trek Voyager episode coming up. We got a second Lilo and Stitch episode coming up. We got a Boba Fett After Hours coming up. We got
Boba Fett After
Hours. I'm making stuff up, guys. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us here. We appreciate every review that you give us and every listen that you download from whatever podcast application you give us. Thank you so much. We hope to see you next time. Next time we're covering a movie that I have not seen before. I think this is a first. Have we ever covered a movie that I have not seen before? I know for you, I think Your Name was the first time that you had ever seen that movie.
Yes. Yeah, that was the first time I had seen that movie. I mean, I think that there were a couple of episodes that we covered that both of us, like, it was kind of like new, hot off the press that both of us saw that,
Sure.
was kind of new, but like nothing that I think that had been out for an extended period of time that we're like, oh, this is something new. But yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm all caught up on those. Though I have to go back and watch it. I haven't seen Apocalypse in like a long time now.
X-Men Apocalypse, I have never seen, you guys. The only scene that I have seen of X-Men Apocalypse is the Quicksilver scene, believe it or not. So outside of that, I have no idea what we're about to get. So thank you so much. I can't wait to check that out. And I will be checking that out. And you will be listening to this. You will be listening to this. You will be listening to this podcast next week. I'm trying to get into your head. You know? Come on. You'll be there. Come on.
Like the audible earwig.
You'll be there. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye. The Wolverine.
The Wolverine.